Welcome to Daily Armor. Our verse today will be found in the book of Exodus, chapter number 17, and we'll be looking at verse number 14. Exodus 17:14. And it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." Now, when we're looking at this text and you're thinking, what in the world? Writing some things down, remembering. Now, what was going on here was there was a battle that Joshua was fighting against the Amalekites. And Moses told him to go out and fight against them, and that he was going to raise his rod up to the Lord, and the Lord was going to give them the victory. And that's exactly what would take place. Now, when Moses' arm would get weak and weary and tired, if you ever tried holding your arm out and seeing how long you can hold it, eventually you're going to get tired. So we had Aaron and Hur went up on the mount with Moses, and they fixed some rocks, some things to stabilize him. They helped him. They got on each side of him, and they helped him. And ultimately, the Lord gave the victory. And that's what Joshua needed to remember. The Lord knew in his all of his knowledge, he knows what's going to happen to us today, tomorrow, and years and years and years down the road. And the Lord knew that Joshua was going to be the next leader one day, and that he was going to all these battles that he was going to have to fight. And he wanted him to remember who gave the victory. That the Lord himself was going to give the victory. Why would he need to remember that? Because he was going to need that. He was going to need that information. He was going to need to know those things for the battles that were going to come. And I think so many times that we have a tendency to remember the bad times. All we remember is the bad times sometimes. And we forget about all of the blessings and the miracles and the victories. And it's in those details that if we could remember those details, especially when the Lord is moved in a big way. And I don't mean like everybody saw, but I mean in a big way in your situation and in my situation. I know that the Lord has done some huge things for me that really were very tiny to anybody else, but to me they were huge. And I'm one who I keep a prayer journal, and not every prayer that I pray is written down, but there's a lot of times when, especially when I really want to focus and I want to be free from distractions, if I will write my prayers down, it helps me to focus. And it also helps me when I go back and look, I might run across a prayer journal and I'm like, oh, wonder what this year is from, and wonder what was going on. And I'll just flip through an old prayer journal, and I'll just flip through some pages, and I can read kind of my mindset for that day, where I was very thankful and grateful and just praising the Lord. Or maybe I can flip through, and on another day I was feeling fearful, upset. Maybe I was grieving. Maybe that there was a big battle going on, and there's definitely been a lot. And I know that when I remember how the Lord, through His timing and His ways, brought the victory and all those things, then that helps me to go forward, and not to go forward in fear, and not to go forward in dread, but to really look forward to whatever the next battle is. How is the Lord going to help me and you through it? How is He going to help us through it? And so I want to challenge us to keep a praise book, to keep a journal of miracles, of things that you want to be sure that you don't forget, because it's going to be useful in something that you're going to need maybe a year down the road, maybe 5 years down the road. And you need to remember that this was a battle, but these are the details of how the Lord took care of it. I want us to look back in the scripture real quick. Go back up to verse number 8, and it says, "Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. There's a whole nother lesson we can go with just how we shouldn't do things, think that we have to do everything by ourselves, but the Lord will send us some people who will help us when things get heavy. But let's proceed on. In verse number 11, it says, "And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed." So this was the rod of Moses. He was holding it up before the Lord. And as when he was holding it up, this was the victory sign, raising his hands to the Lord. Whenever we're in church, whenever I'm thinking about something the Lord has done, I don't care if anybody's even around, I will lift my hand to the Lord. I am praising him because he's given the victory. And that's what is happening in these verses. But in verse number 12, "But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side, and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun." So they put a rock under Moses to kind of give him some rest. He could sit down, and then each man got on each side, and they continued to hold Moses' hand. And when he would get tired, they could give him that rest. And then as they got tired, Moses would be strengthened, and he could again hold his own hands up, and they could have a break. So they worked together, but ultimately, who gave the victory? God was giving the victory. God would let the men prevail over the enemy. So it says in verse number 13, "And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword." Verse 14, which is our verse, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book." Write this for a memorial in a book. That's my challenge for us today, is write it down in a book. Get you a prayer journal. Get you a journal. And maybe even, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm excited. I've got some extra journals in my cabinet. I'll try to always keep some bought up, ready for that next one when I get it filled up. And maybe I'm just going to make mine just about things I need to remember. Because there's a lot of things that I remember that I don't want to remember. There's a lot of things that I would love to forget. So my challenge is going to be to remember those things that I need to remember, that I need to not forget, because it's going to help me in those battles to come. I want to write it down, and I challenge you to do the same thing. Write it down. Remember how the Lord, and we're not going to remember everything, but go back and try to write down as much as you can. And as as something triggers your memory and you remember how the Lord did something before, jot that one down, and then don't forget those new things. Those it doesn't even have to be the huge things to then it's in the sight of others, but it was huge to you. There are some things that he's done for me that are humongous to me, and nobody else would understand, but I need to remember, because that's going to help me. That's going to help me in the present things that are going on right now, the things that I'm wanting to do, but the Lord is saying, wait on me, and when I do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it perfectly. And you don't have to do it, because the Lord's going to do it. I don't have to do it, because the Lord's going to do it. And we need to remember how he's done it before. And then he's going to give us the victory, and he's going to let us know when to go, when to stop. Because he's ultimately in control. So I challenge you, and it's a challenge for myself. I look forward to it. I'm already thinking of so many things that I want to write down. Cannot wait to grab my fresh new journal that I have in the cabinet and start writing down those things so that I can remember, just like this was to be rehearsed in the ears of Joshua. Not just, and if you've ever rehearsed something, I tried to learn how to play the piano, and I've got about 5 songs, and I rehearse them over and over and over and over again. So we need to rehearse them. We need to listen. We need to read it. We need to remind ourselves over and over again, lest we forget. If you back up to the very first part of chapter number 17, you will see how the children of Israel going where the Lord told him to go. If we'll back up to verse number 1, I don't want us to miss this in this chapter, but verse number 1 of Exodus 17 says, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys according to the commandment of the Lord." I don't want you to miss that. According to the commandment of the Lord. The Lord sent them somewhere. He sent them somewhere. And pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. He sent them to this place. He sent them from Sin to Rephidim, and there was no water for them. Now, if he sent them, then I'm going to have to assume that he had a plan. We have to assume that if the Lord sends us somewhere, and then there seems to be some kind of obstacle, and definitely not having water would be an obstacle. You can't live without water. The animals couldn't live without water. They would not be able to survive. And the Lord is in control of our survival. He was in the control of Israel's survival. This is not the first time that they had been to a place that the Lord had sent them, along the way that the Lord had sent them, and that they came to a place where they had no water. If you remember back at the brook, back at Marah, there was no water. The water was bitter. But what happened? The Lord made the water sweet and drinkable. So the Lord sent them somewhere. They were following his lead, and they were led right into a difficulty, right into an obstacle. They had just went through the Red Sea. Nobody had ever been through anything like that. Nobody had experienced anything like that. Yet they had already forgotten of this wonderful, huge thing that the Lord had done in their lives, and they come to this obstacle where the water is bitter. And the Lord makes the water sweet. But their first thing was to panic. Their first little inkling to do was to panic. What is the Lord doing? Is he sending us out here to kill us? Where is he at? What are we going to do? And panic sets in. And that's what we're trying to prevent. We don't need to see an obstacle and go right straight to panic. We need to see an obstacle and say, Lord, you're going to do it again. And I wonder how you're going to do it. And I look forward to see how you're going to do it. And I want to be patient. I want to wait on you. And I don't want to be this one who panics, and I don't want to be this one who gripes and complains. And Moses, if you go back to chapter 17 here, where again they're in a situation where they have no water, Moses tells the Lord, what am I supposed to do with these people? They're about to stone me. That's how mad, that's how angry, that's how panicked. When a group like a pack of dogs is fixing to jump on Moses and just destroy him. What would that have helped? He was the man of God. He was who they needed a word from the Lord that would send through Moses, and yet they were fixing to take the Lord's man, and through panic they were fixing to destroy him, and ultimately they would have been destroying themselves. But here we look again, they come to another situation where the Lord has led them there, and their first thing is to do is panic and complain and want to revolt and want to, get in this mob mentality, and just fear sets in, and it will make you do crazy things when fear sets in. And so here again, this is a time when we have those things come up in our life, and our first inkling is to panic. What are we going to do? Okay, Lord, what am I going to do now? Lord, it needed to be taken care of yesterday, and it's still not. Lord, it's not being taken care of today, and Lord, what am I going to do? But the first thing that we need to do is say, Lord, I'm going to go back and read that book. I'm going to remind myself of all those things where you have come through time and time and time again. And I believe that's why the Lord wanted this book written for Joshua, so he could remember. And his first inclination has not been to panic, but even in the battles, as they get bigger and as they get harder and as they get scarier and as he gets wearied, and as the people want to, get upset with him later in life, he can go back and remember in this memory book that he is going to be able to go back and read and remind himself over and over again how the Lord has come through. And I think that would be good for us to have that memory book, because we want to stop any kind of bad habit that we have to panic, bad habit that we have to well up in fear. And the way that we do that is when we notice it in somebody else's life. It's easy to see it in the Israelites. It's easy to see this. If you look, and it says, verse number 2, wherefore the people did chide with Moses and say, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? He's saying, what are you in the world are you doing? He said, why are you acting like this? He said, you are absolutely going to make the Lord mad. And we are going to make the Lord mad when we chide with him, when we chide with those that we feel like have control, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our pastor, whether it's our boss, whether it's whoever it is in command over us that has some authority over us, when ultimately the responsibility is the Lord. If he's led us to this point, then he's going to provide. He is the Lord that provides. He is going to provide those things that we need. And we know that water is vital to existence. And so this was another time when the children of Israel had the opportunity to say, we're gonna remember and we're gonna praise the Lord because he's brought us here and we know he's gonna provide us water. That's not what they did. And we need to recognize those kind of things in our own life when we get to those points, so that we can stop that bad habit and turn that into praise. Grab that memory book and say, Lord, look here what you did before. Look here what you've done. And Lord, I just want to always remember those wonderful things that you've done, those miracles that you've done, the way that you helped in the midst of that bad situation, the way that enemy that was seeking to devour me, that enemy that was trying to destroy me, that enemy that was after my children, that's after my marriage, that's after my church, that's after my sanity. Lord, but you have come in and you have stepped in time and time and time again. And Lord, here we are again, but Lord, I'm going to praise you and I'm going to thank you for what you're going to do, what you've already took care of. I just am excited and wait to see how it's going to come to pass. So grab those journals, go buy you a journal, grab you a notebook, whatever you've got, and make yourself a memory book, not of things that you've done, but things that he's done. It'll help you. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.